Why do some students clear preliminary examination easily, but there are others who find it very difficult to clear? If you'll ask me, the difference doesn't lie in traditional subjects like history, geography, polity, and economy. Why am I saying so? It's because most of the students, most of the serious students, would prepare these subjects thoroughly. They know what the standard sources are. They will spend a lot of time on these subjects. Moreover, coaching institutes would also focus mostly on these subjects. The difference would be created by the dynamic subjects. Subjects like science and technology, environment, biodiversity and climate change, agriculture, international bodies and organizations, schemes, programs, Economic Survey of India, budget, etc. Now for this portion of the syllabus, students mostly rely on monthly magazines. These magazines only cover these topics in a superficial manner, mostly dealing with factual aspect, without giving fundamental understanding to students. Our target prelims current affairs program is focused on solving precisely this problem. We will delve with each subject while going into its fundamentals. Then we'll cover these fundamentals to current happenings. And finally, we will solve past year questions as well as other practice questions. This would ensure that your preparation is complete. So, if you want to level up your CSE preliminary examination preparation, come and join Target Prelims 2022 Current Affairs program at Level Up IAS.
Hi all, good morning. So welcome to this new lecture, and here we shall be discussing the ongoing Ukraine crisis. So initially actually I thought that first I'll discuss the Cold War and then we will go for Ukraine crisis, because somewhat this is related to the Cold War. However, the point is that since this was going to be a YouTube live and many of you might be already aware about the Cold War, so we will be discussing Cold War very briefly, and then we will come back to the ongoing crisis. And before I start explaining everything to you, let me just say that since this is a YouTube live, let your question keep coming. I shall be watching them over here, and it can be in any language. I mean either Hindi or English. And if you want that at some point of time I should explain it in Hindi, I shall be doing that. So let your questions keep coming for whatever doubts. Okay. So going back to my first class, if you remember, what is it that I had said? That in order to understand the geopolitics, the international relations, there are three factors that you need to focus on. What were those three factors? If you can recall, but I shall be helping you to recall that. The first was naturally history, second was politics, this was into internal and external, and the third one was economy. There can be other factors, I do not deny that, but those issues will generally be peripheral. It is generally these three factors that determine the geopolitics, why a particular nation is going in a is taking specific decisions, why nations are not coming together, etc., etc. So while we are discussing this, first let's come to the history part. So you see, this is Ukraine, right? But when we go to Ukraine, actually no one had ever thought that something like this would happen, that some nation will go for invading another nation. And if we go back to the history in 2008, you would find that Russia had attacked Georgia and South Ossetia and Abkhazia. It had acquired these two regions, and then Russia recognized them as independent republics, just like in Donbas region it was Donetsk and Luhansk. So the key question is, if Russia could have done this to Georgia, why didn't Russia limit itself to recognizing this Donbas region, that is Donetsk and Luhansk? And why was it that Russia went for special military action? This is another lesson that I am repeating that I had already said in the first class. While writing your answers in the UPSC, you have to use those specific terms that has been given by the government of India. You have to toe the government of India line. If you look at all the press releases, statements, even at the United Nations, the government of India has not used the term invasion, attack, etc. It has used the same term that has been used by Russia, that is special military operation. You will be seeing that news channels are going for using all sorts of terms, because generally our news channels, they are not aware about the nuances of diplomacy. Okay, so you have to be very careful on what terms are you going to use. So this is a special military operation. Okay, for this we will have to go back to the history. These three nations, Russia, Belarus and Ukraine, they find a common ancestry. Kievan Rus. Kyivan Rus. And from this Rus only Belarus and Russia, both names are driven. So there is a case of common ancestry. Okay, so if we go back to the speech of President Putin, which he had given before recognizing the Donbas region, two separate republics, he had given a detailed speech about the culture, how Ukraine has never been independent, only for 15 to 17 years and something like that. He gave in detail. That is one of the key reasons why Russia is so much attached to Ukraine. Ukraine and Russia are so much close together that Nikita Khrushchev, who came after Stalin, he was from Ukraine region. Then in 2008, 9, 7, 8, 9, while we were discussing this Kudankulam project with Russia, the head of Russian nuclear energy, he was an Ukrainian. Such close are the relations. But that is not the only factor. Another factor is that Ukraine is not culturally homogeneous. In this region, as we know, there are more number of Russian people, but in this region, in the western region, there are more people who are Polish, who define their origin from Slovak region, Romanian region. So naturally there is a difference in worldview, in opinion, of West versus East, there is a clear-cut divide within Ukraine. So it is this conflict that emerged post 2014. What happened in 2014? It was Viktor Yanukovych who was deposed. He was forced to flee away to Russia. He was the then president because he had rejected the European deal and he was closer to Russia. So there were protests called as Euromaidan protests, and then Petro Poroshenko came to power. All right, and then Russia saw this, that there is something seriously threatening that is happening in Ukraine. As a result, what happened? This Crimean Peninsula. Russia went for occupying that, and then it went for a referendum. Roughly 97% people voted in favor, and Russia said that okay, this is now our part. And it was at that time only that in eastern Ukraine, protests, civil unrest that began. Since 2014, this has been going on. Whenever you must have read Ukrainians on the news, they will say that this is not something new. This has been, Ukraine is in state of war since 2014. At that time, 2 accords were signed. Initially, it was Minsk 1 and then it was Minsk 2. And both those accords were related to the eastern region of Ukraine. The Minsk 2 accord that Russia frequently talks about, he says that you have to go back, you have to go back, you have to go back to Minsk accord. It had called that okay, there will be as usual that the forces will be removed from the borders, and then it was about providing the self-governance rights to these regions. These two, Donetsk and Luhansk. Ukraine did not comply that. It had agreed, it did not comply. That was another factor. Now let us go back to geopolitics once again, okay? There is something about Russia, how Russia looks at itself, at its security interests. There is a book by Robert D. Kaplan, The Revenge of Geography. In that book, he has explained that Russia needs to ensure a sphere of influence around itself. We know the geographical expanse of Russia. We know the population of Russia, roughly 11 to 12 crores. So it's natural that Russia won't be able to protect its own geography. It is so vast. As a result, what it does is that rather than protecting its own geography, it tries to create a buffer. When you look at Belarus, Belarus is important for Russia. Why? Because it creates a buffer against Western Europe, all these NATO nations, Poland. Then when you look at in this Georgia, Ossetia and Abkhazia, why? Because it creates a buffer. Central Asian republics, Russia has got an influence. Reason? They create a buffer, and that is how Russia protects itself. And when you look at Ukraine, it is among the largest in this whole region. It has also got a significant military power. So once Ukraine goes into the NATO bloc, into the Western bloc, it is but natural that there will be military equipments over here and Russia will be threatened. When you look at this Donbas region, this, how it has been divided and how Russia has recognized it. Just look at the recognition from the same perspective that I have explained you. it is roughly touching the Belarus border. So what happens in this region? Belarus is protecting Russian borders, and here it will be the Donbas region, the Donetsk and Luhansk. So what will happen? That roughly Russia will be in a position to protect its own border by creating buffers. Then it is about Black Sea. In Black Sea, you see, Russia has got such a vast expanse, but Russia has got only two warm water ports. Warm water port means the ports which do water around which do not freeze. Suppose we talk about the Russian ports around this North Pole region. What will happen? During the winters, it will freeze, something that happens to Vladivostok port. So in that port, what happens is during winters, it gets frozen. So it's natural that without ice cutters, you cannot go for deploying your navy. So that will cripple Russia for this whole of winter. So presently Russia has got only two warm water ports. This is Kaliningrad, and another one is this one, Sevastopol, that is in Crimea. And Crimea also holds this Black Sea fleet of Russian Navy. A warm water port, and from Black Sea it can always have an influence in the Mediterranean Sea, and this is critical for Russia to have influence over its partners like in Syria. So just look at the detailed geopolitics. Moreover, this region was not naturally belonging to Ukraine, Crimean Peninsula. This was gifted to Ukraine by Nikita Khrushchev. Reason being, no one had ever thought that something like this will happen, that Ukraine will go away from Russia. So it was in Russia's strategic interest that this had to come back to Russia. Okay, so we have discussed the history and we have discussed a part of geopolitics. Okay, my request to you people is that please do not put questions regarding other courses. I know these are important for you, but I do not have detailed information about them. So it will be better that if you directly call to the office or message them. Okay, that's a request. I can understand your concern, but then I don't have any information, so it will be futile if you put those questions over here. Rather than that, you can put all the questions regarding to ongoing crisis. I want you people to challenge me to ask some questions that will make me think that, okay, what can be the answer to this question? This is completely new perspective of looking at things. So that is something I'll request you people to put your questions. So through messages, just clarify, have you understood this cultural differences? I hope it is clear that why Ukraine is so much important rather than Georgia or some other nation. I hope this is clear to you. Okay. Now let us go back to NATO and what happened post Cold War. You must have known that initially NATO was created. Then in response, when Western Germany joined NATO, then Russia responded by creating its own military. Creating its own military bloc, that was Warsaw Pact. After the Cold War, this Warsaw Pact was dismantled because since USSR was no more there. And what happened after the Cold War was that there was an agreement, and this was a verbal agreement between Russia, since USSR was no more there, Nikita Khrushchev, and the US Foreign Secretary, that NATO will not expand eastwards. This was an agreement, but this was just a verbal agreement. But what happened was that NATO kept expanding itself, and this is something that was very much disconcerting, very much uncomfortable for Russia. And if you look at 1990s, the relationship between Russia and West was such that Russia itself wanted to be part of NATO. It was liberalizing its economy. However, the problem with USA is that it does not know the partnership of equals. That is the biggest problem with USA. And that is the key reason why still there is a lack of trust between India and USA. If we look at relationship between India and Russia, though there are limitations, the trade is hardly above $10 billion. But there is a greater degree of trust. Russia does not keep questioning India, okay, you do this, okay, you do that, okay, you do that. But in case of USA, though trade has exceeded $140 billion, there are multiple agreements at multiple levels. We shall be reading that in while we will go for India USA. Okay. But still there is an element of distrust. Presently also, what is US saying? We are trying to convince India, and within American Congress also there is a clear-cut division. Some are understanding India's position. What others are saying? Others are saying that India should come on the side of Russia and it should condemn. So this is the biggest issue with USA, that you cannot trust, and USA has shown this multiple times. During Iran-Iraq war, it had supplied weapons to Iraq. Later on, what happened? It bombed Iraq. In case of Afghanistan, what happened? You suddenly move away. In case of South China Sea, which is very much critical, US did nothing while China rebuilt, militarized all those small islands in the South China Sea, and that is the biggest problem with USA. USA and presently China as well, they are the best players of real politics. Real politics means emotions, values, etc. do not matter. All that matters is national interest. Okay. So I have written down some of the points. Just look at them and then we will go back to it. Okay. Relationship was generally formed during Boris Yeltsin, 1991 to 99. And then what happened? Everything was right. Now, I'll come to this later on. Okay. They were personal. Clinton and Yeltsin, very good relations. And this James Baker, and he had agreed with Gorbachev, that I was saying just now, that there will not be eastward expansion of NATO. However, this George H.W. Bush, he was the father of George W. Bush, 2000 to 2008 US president, who went for misadventure in Afghanistan and then to Iraq, and later pushed for NATO's eastward expansion. If you look at the readout that was published by the MEA after President Putin called Prime Minister Modi, the statement simply said that Indian Prime Minister said that any tension between Russia and NATO should be resolved bilaterally. So this is not a tension between Russia and Ukraine. It is a tension between Russia and NATO, and not even NATO, between Russia and USA. Because even within NATO, there are nations like France who have said in the past that Russia should be made part of European security architecture. Because just imagine, Russia is such a significant military power, second strongest military in the world, an European power. I mean European plus Asian, that is why Eurasian power. So how can you think of creating a security architecture in Europe that discounts Russia? Without Russia, how can you create? Then the question emerges, why does US want that? That there should be a, I will come to this Yugoslavia bombings, then there will be in action in Georgia. Yes. But first, let me go back to this map once again. This is Europe, right? And we know Europe population is roughly twice of USA. Almost a similar size of economy. So imagine a scenario where Europe and Russia, there is no tension. This has got military, second largest, and this has got economy, perhaps the largest. It is but natural that this will be a threat to US hegemony. This will be a threat to US leadership. So that is why what US has always done is that there should be a clear-cut divide between Russia and Europe. And it is this divide that US has continuously tried to increase. There are nations, there is Germany and there is France, who argue that Russia and we should have stronger relations with Russia. They even said that it should be welcomed to NATO. US has denied. And it is US that has not. Even these nations, they are against this blind expansion. Since George Bush, then Obama, they all said that we will bring in this Georgia and this Ukraine within NATO. These nations have resisted. So it is this geopolitics of USA that is behind the ongoing tension. So what happened? As a result, just to keep Russia uncomfortable and taking NATO to its borders, what happened that it continuously kept on increasing. Initially, NATO had only 12 members. Presently, it has got 30 members. There has been total 8 phases of NATO expansion. You kept expanding, you took Poland, then you took all these Baltic nations, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, then you got Hungary, etc. All these nations. Then Russia said it is enough. I do not have any more space to move back. And when one does not move back, one is cornered. It is but natural that one will retaliate. And what you are seeing is this retaliation from Russia. That if you do not understand, if this does not get into your head that what are my security concerns, and if you are going to put missiles on my border through Ukraine, it has gone to pulverize Ukraine. So this is the geopolitics. Yet again, this is just one part of it. There are multiple parts, and that we will be discussing slowly. One more question that is frequently told, one more statement that is being frequently, India role. Okay, Vedant, we will be discussing. First, let me explain all these things, okay? Then I will definitely come to India's role. I am just trying to explain you why this is happening. It is not simply that Russia, one day Putin comes that no, I should attack Ukraine, and Russia has attacked Ukraine. What I am trying is that giving you a detailed view. So first understand all these nuances, then we will definitely come to India. That is natural, because IR is about India relations with the other world. So naturally we will be India. And what is India's present position? Then what can be in the future? Because one of the students had said in the last class that naturally India will go back to the West. And I had said no, this will not happen. We will again discuss, we will go back to that. So please have patience and understand this, because this is important. This is going to help you in understanding what will happen in Europe or in USA or with China. Okay. So one thing that is being said is, this is for the first time something like this has happened post World War. Some nation has been invaded in this manner. This is absolutely wrong. And what Russia is doing presently is giving US and the West a taste of its own medicine. In 99, what happened was that there was no sanction, there was no permission from UN. This region is Yugoslavia. In 1999, NATO went for bombing this. NATO bombed this region. Multiple nations, all these nations that you are seeing, they were free. So when NATO does it, there won't be any questions, because that is being supported by the Western media. Absolutely, there was no UN sanction, there was no UN permission, no UNSC permission. But what they did, they bombed this region. And then again what they did in 2008, within Serbia, this green one is Serbia, okay? Within Serbia, this is a small region called as Kosovo, Kosovo. In 2008 is this one. This is 6 is Serbia and it is Kosovo. They went for recognizing Kosovo as a new country. Exactly what Russia has done to the two republics of Donbas region. So when you recognized Kosovo, everything was fine. But when Russia recognized these two regions, you have got all the problems, right? And when this had happened in 2008, Russia had said that you are setting a very wrong precedence. US did not accept that. Even in 2008 Munich Security Conference, Russia said that take care of our security concerns. West rejected. So, and yes, I have written it here, you can look at it. Yes, initially what they did was bombing of Yugoslavia. Russia opposed NATO actions in Yugoslavia over Kosovo. This was in 1999. And then what happened? I have written it. Just a sec, where it is. Yeah. In 2008, Kosovo was recognized as an independent country. And Putin had warned, do not go for this. And in 2014, when Russia recognized Crimea, Russia used the same Kosovo declaration to recognize the independence of Crimea. So Russia was giving West the taste of its own medicine. And it is not the first time Russia has given the West a taste of its medicine. Back in 2008 only, just look at it. Yes. In 2008 only there was Russia-Georgia war and South Ossetia and Abkhazia. In the opening of my lecture, what I had said? in the opening of my lecture I had marked, right, about these two regions in Georgia, South Ossetia and Abkhazia, because at that time, and it is written that they had gone for, George Bush said that Georgia and Ukraine, they will be made a member of NATO. So this was as per its own geopolitical purposes and its security concerns. Russia bombed this region, and South Ossetia and Abkhazia have been recognized as new regions. So what you did in Kosovo, I did the same in Georgia, and then I did the same in Ukraine. So why are you crying now? That is a simple question that Russia is asking. Okay? Next, I hope everything is clear. Got any doubts? So you see, what I am trying, you might be thinking that I am pro-Russia. I am neither pro-Russia nor pro-USA. Why should I be? Those are two independent nations. I am just trying to explain you that all that is being said, oh, Russia has done so bad, Russia has done so bad. And yes, mind you, these Yugoslavia bombings, presently they are crying because Ukraine war has gone for how many days? Roughly it has been 16 to 18 days, right? This bombing of Yugoslavia went for more than 70 days. When Kosovo was made independent in 2008, right? But in 1999 bombings of this region, it went on for 70 days. Just imagine the proportion. There were protests that okay, Albanians, they are being discriminated, there are violence against them, violence of human rights, etc. Actually, the point was that yet again Yugoslavia was a very big republic, and this is why Russia continuously says that US has not been able to accept that Russia can be so large. What they did, they bombed, and all these small nations, they were so-called said that okay, they are being liberated. So that is why someone had said that okay, there was a tweet that some nation goes to another nation and bombs it. What do you call it? What is it being called? One gave a very good answer, that depends on who has bombed. If USA bombs that, it is liberation. Example, Iraq, Libya, Yugoslavia, Afghanistan, and if Syria, and if Russia does that, that is invasion. So this was 70-day bombing. Can you imagine it? And yes, India has not recognized Kosovo till now. India has not recognized it. Okay. Next question comes, and yes, let me focus on another set of propaganda. Okay. What is it being said? Oh, Ukraine is a democracy, Zelensky is this, Zelensky is that, etc., etc., etc. Ukrainian leader of opposition is jailed because he is pro-Russia. And not only leader of opposition, many of the people, they have been jailed, many pro-Russian people. So when Russia arrests Navalny, leader of opposition, an important opposition leader, that is, all hell breaks loose, that no, this should not happen, how can this happen? And when Ukraine does the same, no one says that, and you do not know about it. Why? Because all the media that you get to listen is completely Western narrative. You are getting the Indian media, where are they getting the news from? It will be Washington Post, NYT, CNN, etc. And these are the same people who had supported bombing of Iraq, and later on there was an investigation and said that no, Iraq had no nuclear weapons and there were no weapons of mass destruction found in Iraq. So it was all based on a concocted narrative, concocted news, that you bombed a whole nation down. Because one may criticize Saddam Hussein, but at least ISIS was not there, at least terrorism was not there. What has happened today? You bombed Iraq, and in all these nations, and this West will never understand, there is a very delicate balancing of power between various groups. When you bomb, you disturb that balance of power. What has happened in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and this is from where ISIS has emerged. Suppose they had been successful in bombing Syria and leaving out Assad. Okay, there you can criticize Assad, there can be multiple demerits about Assad. But at least he presents a central authority. There is a sense of law and order. Imagine about Iraq. There is a president in Iraq that has been accepted by the West. Has he been able to control the territory? Answer is no. Then what is the purpose of that authority who is not able to control the territory, and it is leading to emergence of radical groups, terror groups? So that is another reality of Ukraine. ISIS, Islamic State of, one calls it Iraq and Syria. IS is Iraq and Syria. Then they call it ISIL, Iraq and Levant. So वैसे ISIS लिखने से ही काम हर जगह चला जाता है. You do not need to, क्योंकि ये काफी बड़ा है. So, and now going to another aspect, and that is energy. You all must have heard about Nord Stream, right? Nord Stream is a pipeline. Nord Stream 1 is there, and now there is Nord Stream 2. Pipelines that are directly coming to via this Baltic Sea to Germany. Presently, all the pipelines, since they are from the Cold War era pipelines, and all these territory were the same. Present pipelines, they are crossing from Ukraine and Poland. So when these pipelines are crossing Ukraine and Poland, naturally they will take transit fees, and Russian exports to this region will be hostage to all of them, because if they want, they can actually shut it down. It is natural that they will not do it because they themselves need gas. If you shut it down for the West, Russia will shut it down for you. So what will you do? But this Nord Stream 1 and then Nord Stream 2, it is bypassing all these nations and it is directly reaching to Germany. So no transit fee for them, and Russia will have greater hold over European politics, because European politics means this region. These nations, they are many, but they do not have significant economic clout. Significant economic, significant military clout. The decision making is controlled by the Western European nations. So Ukraine has continuously protested that. And what US has says that we are not going to let this Nord Stream 2 a success. They have even said that we will shut it down. This is exact statements of this US President Biden. But what is the benefit for Germany? It will get cheaper gas, because no more transit fee to all of them, and it can directly, and control over these pipes. 50% belongs to Russia and 50% belongs to the private groups of all these nations. So this energy politics is another dimension to it. And how US says that if something like this happens, Russia will have a greater control on European politics, and what will happen to me? Moreover, post this shale revolution, US has also emerged as a significant energy producer. So if US is able to put sanctions on the Russian energy exports, it is but natural that how all these nations will get their energy. They will have to be dependent on USA. You can say, okay, USA, then there will be some exports from Latin America, then there will be exports from Gulf region. So this is another aspect of this dimension. Got any question? प्रॉपरली चीजें समझ में आ रही है ना, कैसे क्या क्या चल रहा है? ये सीधे का सीधा लड़ाई नहीं है कि रशिया का मन हुआ रशिया ने अटैक कर दिया. जो ऑनलाइन वाले हैं, यू गॉट एनी क्वेश्चंस? Any question or any specific topic that you want me to? Yes, the stake of all these nations I will be discussing next. Till now I have only explained the detailed geopolitics. Okay, we have seen the security interests, Black Sea fleet is there, then there is pipelines, then there are this cultural relations, internally there are tensions, Russia's own security concerns that it wants to create buffer so that it can simply ensure its territory by protecting all these regions. इनिशियली क्रीमिया जो था वो रशिया का पार्ट था. हाँ, उसके बाद क्या हुआ, बिकॉज नो वन हैड थॉट कि यूक्रेन अलग चला जाएगा. उस टाइम पे ये एरिया क्राइमिया को दे दिया गया था, यूक्रेन को दे दिया गया था. जबकि यूक्रेन क्राइमिया का इंपॉर्टेंस है कि यूएस की ब्लैक सी फ्लीट यहीं पे है, सॉरी यूएस रशिया की ब्लैक सी फ्लीट यहीं पे है. इसका वन ऑफ द 2 वार्म वाटर पोर्ट्स यहाँ पे सेवेस्तोपोल है, एक वार्म वाटर पोर्ट यहाँ पे है और एक वार्म वाटर पोर्ट यहाँ पे है कालिनिनग्राड. और जब यहाँ पे तुम्हारा कंट्रोल रहेगा तो यू कैन इजिली कंट्रोल ऑल द मिलिट्री एक्शंस. आप यहाँ पे देख रहे हो ना, यहीं पे सीरिया है. सो इस पूरे रीजन में यू कैन हैव अ सिग्निफिकेंट इन्फ्लुएंस. सो दैट इज वाई ये बहुत ज्यादा. और जैसे ही 2014 में इन्होंने देखा यूरो मैदान प्रोटेस्ट हुआ और पेट्रो पोरोशेंको आया, रशिया हैड थॉट दैट समथिंग विशियस हैज हैपेंड, और इसने ही वेंट फॉर कंट्रोलिंग दिस. रशिया का पार्ट है, हाँ, उसने रेफरेंडम करवा लिया है, 97% वोट, एंड नाउ दिस इज माय पार्ट. हाँ, एक और चीज, एंड हियर अगेन यूएसए. So overall you will see that it is the USA who is the, what should I say, biggest culprit in all this. There are something called as colored revolutions in this whole of Eastern Europe, then in Central Asia, that have happened. Tulip revolution, yes, I have mentioned about some of them. Colored, yeah, look at here. This is what US does. Rose revolution, it was in Georgia. Orange revolution, that happened in Ukraine in 2004 only. 2014 it was Euromaidan, Euromaidan. This was protest. As a result, Viktor Yanukovych, he was ousted. 2003, इस जीरो को आप काट दे यार, 30 कहां से आ जाएगा ये 2003 था. सो असल में क्या लगता है ना कि ओके, यूएस इज फॉर डेमोक्रेसी, यूएस इज फॉर डेमोक्रेसी. यूएस हैज गॉट अ स्पेसिफिक सेट ऑफ आइडियल्स, दैट इज यूएस, जस्ट अ सेक, देन मैं सवाल पूछ लूंगा. एक स्पेसिफिक सेट ऑफ आइडियल्स है दैट दिस इज हाउ द गवर्नमेंट गवर्नेंस शुड रन, दिस इज हाउ गवर्नमेंट शुड रन. And what they do, they keep preaching us that no, your democracy is flawed, there is no religious freedom, there is no this, there is no that. And what it does, it engineers revolts, it engineers protests. And in whole of this region, Eastern Europe region, and then it was Central Asia region, there have been protests, and US said that why are you involved in this? So it is natural that this will increase the lack of trust between between USA and Russia. So these protests, these colored revolution, you simply need to mention about colored revolutions. Colored revolutions. So this is another factor. क्या कोई सवाल है? How to read Hindu newspaper, because day by day they give news about Russia and Ukraine. You see, you do not need to, because you are not reporting, okay? Just because किसने कितना मिसाइल फेंका, किसने कितने बम फोड़े, उसका कोई मतलब नहीं है. Overall, what you will be needing is specific set of understanding the ideas, the challenges, कि जो हुआ है वो क्यों हुआ है. मत पढ़ो किसी के भी कंटेक्स्ट में, मत पढ़ो. क्या इंपॉर्टेंट है पढ़ने को? इन केस इफ दे कम एट सम एग्रीमेंट, तो उस एग्रीमेंट के पॉइंट्स क्या क्या हैं, उसके ऊपर चैलेंजेस क्या क्या हैं. यू हैव टू रीड ऑल दिस रादर देन कि आज क्या हुआ, आज इतने लोग मरे, कल उतने लोग मरे, उसने स्कूल पे बम फेंका. बिकॉज ये जो स्कूल पे बम फेंकने वगैरह है ना, नो वन इज देयर टू वेरीफाई. एंड इट्स नेचुरल that since there is only one set of view, that is Western set of view, so definitely they will go for vilifying Russia. Believe me, Russia has got enough firepower to pulverize whole of Europe. Had it wanted, it would have pulverized whole of Ukraine in 5 days flat. It is taking time because it does not want to kill the civilians, but then it is urban warfare. Civilian will always be collateral casualties. And another what US has done, Facebook pages blocked, Russia Today blocked. So what is happening is that only one set of information, that is the Western narrative, that is the Ukrainian narrative. You are not getting the Russian narrative, which is important for making a informed decision. तो हर दिन के बारे में नहीं पढ़ने का. एंड डोंट वरी, मैं सारे का सारा बेसिक इंफॉर्मेशन दे दूंगा. मैं चीजों को क्या कर रहा हूं, मैं आपको चीजों कंसेप्ट्स को समझा रहा हूं कि चीजें क्यों और कैसे होती हैं. क्योंकि जब आप एग्जाम में आंसर लिख रहे हो ना, आपको ये नहीं लिखने का कि रशिया के इतने फाइटर्स उसने फोड़ दिया, उसने उसके उतने टैंक्स फोड़ दिए. यू डू नॉट नीड टू. आई हैव सेड इट, योर आंसर्स हैव टू बी डाइवर्सिफाइड. यू हैव टू ब्रिंग इन जियोपॉलिटिकल, इकोनॉमिक, मिलिट्री, हाउ रशिया लुक्स एट इट्स ओन सिक्योरिटी. जो भी मैंने बोला है, एक एक पॉइंट, and you will have more than enough content. जैसे मैंने क्या क्या, सबसे पहली बात कल्चरल है, कल्चरली सिमिलर हैं, लेकिन यूरोप के अंदर में, यूक्रेन के अंदर में खुद का टेंशन है, वेस्ट वर्सेज ईस्ट का. देन क्या है, रशिया अपनी सिक्योरिटी को देखता है. अगला पॉइंट क्या है, नाटो का एक्सपेंशन और रशिया के कंसर्न्स क्या क्या हैं. उसका अगला पॉइंट क्या है, ये पाइपलाइन का जो पॉलिटिक्स है. So you have to look at all this in such a fashion. रोज रोज क्या हो रहा है वो बिल्कुल नहीं जाने का. ओके, सो ठीक है. नाउ वी विल गो फॉर डीलिंग विथ ऑल दीज नेशंस वन बाय वन. ये वैसे भी कुछ नहीं, ये मैंने सिर्फ रशिया और यूएस के टेंशन के बारे में है. लिबियन इंटरवेंशन, be it Iraq, be it Libya, US and NATO did not have permission to invade them. They violated the international rules, and today they are crying that international rules are being violated. They had violated it in the past during Kosovo. Then Russia gave them a taste of their own medicine, and now you are crying. Okay. So now we will go for discussing all these nations one by one, that किसके क्या क्या कंसर्न्स हैं और क्या क्या क्यों क्यों हो रहा है, चैलेंजेस वगैरह. ओके, सो यहीं पे वी विल कम बैक टू इंडिया. या पहले इंडिया डिस्कस कर दें, व्हाट यू से? पहले इंडिया डिस्कस कर दूं? चलिए ठीक है, पहले इंडिया डिस्कस कर लेते हैं. यू सी दिस प्रेजेंटली द सिचुएशन जो है, इंडिया वुड हैव नेवर वांटेड दैट. ये इंडिया के लिए सेकंड लार्जेस्ट चैलेंजिंग टाइम है. द मोस्ट चैलेंजिंग टाइम फॉर इंडियन डिप्लोमेसी वुड बी जबकि वेस्ट या यूएस और चाइना का कोई डायरेक्ट कन्फ्लिक्ट हो जाए. वी डू नॉट वांट दैट. आप कहोगे कि ठीक है, इंडिया विल ऑलवेज विल टेक सपोर्ट ऑफ यूएसए, इंडिया विल सपोर्ट यूएसए एंड इंडिया विल गो अगेंस्ट चाइना. वी डू नॉट, we know that our interests and Chinese interests they diverge, but we will not go for that. क्योंकि अगर सपोज कीजिए चाइना के साथ कोई टेंशन आता है तो we share a common border, we have got undemarcated borders, unresolved issues at the border. वो सिंपली हमारे ऊपर स्पिल ओवर हो सकता है. अगली दिक्कत क्या है, इंडिया माइट बी फोर्स्ड टू चूज साइड which we never want. क्योंकि if we have chosen side क्या होगा, it may so happen कि रशिया आ जाएगा चाइना के सपोर्ट में. हम चाइना को नेचुरली सपोर्ट नहीं कर सकते, हमें जाना होगा यूएस के सपोर्ट में. और एक सिचुएशन क्या आएगा, इंडिया एंड रशिया आर इन टू डिफरेंट ब्लॉक्स. वी नेवर वांट ब्लॉक पॉलिटिक्स, वी वांट टू मूव अवे फ्रॉम ब्लॉक पॉलिटिक्स. इसलिए प्रेजेंट वाला चैलेंज क्या है, रशिया हैज टेकन मिलिट्री एक्शंस अगेंस्ट यूक्रेन. तो यहां पे सपोज कीजिए कि डायरेक्ट यूएस और रशिया की टेंशन है, हम साइड हो जाएंगे कि नहीं, हम किसी का साइड नहीं ले रहे, वी हैव गॉट नथिंग टू डू विथ इट. लेकिन यहाँ पे क्या है कि देयर इज अ स्मॉलर नेशन, देयर इज अ लार्जर नेशन, एंड दे विल ऑलवेज talk to you from the point of, oh, this is land of Gandhi, India has always preached for peace, India should be on the right side of history. There is nothing right about history. Let me say you something. Churchill, British Prime Minister, someone had, Winston Churchill, someone had asked me, don't you bother how history is going to judge you? He asked that, Churchill replied, history is going to judge me well. The person asked, why so? Churchill's response was, because I am going to rewrite history or write history, whatever his statement was. So that is history. History is not about facts, because each and every fact has been compromised. Be it about India, be it about any other nation. And yes, since we are talking about this, let me say something that is obviously off the topic, just for 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, since we have explained about how we have focused on only one narrative, that was Western narrative, there was no Russian narrative. Okay, and then about history and all these factors, what India should do being on the right side of history. There is a movie in the theaters, right? The Kashmir Files. I would ask you people to go and watch it, because, and let me explain it. For me, there are 4 factors why I am saying this to you. First is, I have had a part of my education in Jammu, so I have friends who are Kashmiri Hindus and some very, very, very special people. So I can associate, and I feel obliged to talk about this, because for me, Kheer Bhavani or Sharda Devi, Sharda Peeth, presently it is in POK. They are no different from Vishnupad, that is in Gaya. Next factor I would say, and all these are important, and there is a reason why I am saying you all this. I asked to one of the UPSC aspirants only about this Kashmir mein kya hua tha. You know what was the response that I got? कि हाँ, कि उसने कहा कि मुझे पता है। मैंने बोला क्या पता है? तो उसने कहा कि हाँ, वो कुछ र्यूमर्स वगैरह आए थे जिसके कारण इन लोगों ने छोड़कर भाग लिए। अगला बरखा दत्त का, कि ओ कश्मीरी हिंदूज वेर प्रिविलेज्ड एंड दे वेर weak, they were the persecuted, the same Marxist bullshit. Barkhadat, you will find it. And JKLFs, Yasin Malik, Bitta Karate, terrorists. The fact is, Yasin Malik gets to meet the Indian Prime Minister, and in I think 2007 or 2008, he was called at the India Today conclave as a youth icon. Such has been the whitewash about this crime, and I do not call it genocide, I call it ethnic cleansing, because you made Kashmiri Hindus leave their own ancestral place. Today they are in Delhi, they are in Jammu, they are in Pune. They are not in Kashmir, but they are Kashmiri Hindus. That is, Kashmir is part of their identity, part of their ethnicity. Third factor, I am from Bihar, and many of us might be from Bihar, UP, Rajasthan, Haryana. Even 1 inch of our land goes, how do we react? And think about them, whole of their identity, whole of their ancestry, more than 10,000 years old ancestry, it has gone. And the fourth, the most important one. In 2019, a petition came to the Supreme Court about investigation into all this. On the bench, Justice J.S. Keher and the future Chief Justice of India, Justice Chandrachud. You know what? How they responded? Oh, where you were for last 30 years. It will be very difficult to find proof and investigate the issue. Suddenly, the Supreme Court, which has got only one duty, to ensure justice, they are concerned about policemen, right? That how policemen will find the proofs. There are more than 200 FIRs of that time filed. No punishment. What happens? The same people who killed them, and yes, this JKLF Yasin Malik, whom he killed, he had killed a chief justice, sorry, not chief justice, he had killed a judge of this Srinagar High Court. Then he had killed around 4 Air Force personnel, and one of them was this squadron leader. So the same Supreme Court, which was so much concerned about liquors outlets along the highways, about the firecrackers burst by children, it is concerned where will the proof come from. The bringing in the proof is duty of the police, not the Supreme Court. Under Article 142, you every time go for doing complete justice. Where is the complete justice now? And yes, one more thing. Just few months back, I had read this. The future Chief Justice, he had said that present education system does not provide for complete assessment of talent or knowledge or something like that, he had said. Then I realized, oh, perhaps getting selected by the uncle judges is the correct parameter of talent. That is my statement for the future Chief Justice, who had denied the Kashmiri Hindus their due right to be heard in the court of law. Since this was something very personal to me, I wanted to say to you people, you can share this with others. I have absolutely no problem. Please take my request to others. I want others to know about it. Okay? That was pretty hard. Okay. So, coming back to the topic. What we were discussing? India's concerns, right? This is what we were discussing right now. So we would never want a direct tension between China and USA, and present is the second most challenging situation where a small country our most reliable partner, that is Russia, who is taking action. This is something we would not want, we would not have wanted, and unfortunately the time is such that we are a member of UNSC. So naturally, in whatever meetings takes place, we will have to give statement. So what India has taken, India has talked about sovereignty, India has talked about rule of law, India has talked about peace, diplomacy, all this. There is a constant pressure from US and from the West to criticize Russia. India has not done that, and India will not do that. And yes, this is a challenging situation for India, and India would always want that this war ends at the earliest. However, unfortunately, let us see, it has dragged for this long, and I don't know for how long this will keep on dragging. And regarding India not choosing a side, you see, suppose India had chosen a side and gone for the West, what would have happened? Russia would have had only one nation-wide side, that would have been China. Do you want Russia and China to come together? Obviously not. So that is why India needs to be there. And the next and another important, and yeah, will India go to the Russian camp to support everything? India will not, because West is equally important for us, and moreover, diplomacy is about posturing, what you say, how you say. So this, our image of everything peaceful, etc., etc., that will be severely dented. And the challenge will be that all these smaller nations, India, we know our geography, there are smaller nations. It might so happen that they will be more concerned that what Russia has done in Ukraine, it might so happen that India will do same. India might do same. India does not have a history, and India will never do that. But going overtly in support of Russia can create such challenges for us. So what they will do, they will go for more closer association with China, yet another challenge for us in the region. All this has been discussed in the previous lectures, how China in the Indian Ocean region is a very big problem for us, right? Moreover, another aspect why Russia is and will remain an important partner, even though we are trying to diversify our trade. What we are doing, we are diversifying our trade, but we are going for deepening the energy linkages. We are going for deepening the investments, mainly in the Eastern Russia region. Why? Though I will be covering all this in India-Russia relations, because in the Eastern Russia in 1969 there was a conflict between China and Russia. So Russia continues to distrust China. India has got sufficient manpower, there are investment opportunities. So if India has got presence in Eastern Russia, it's but natural that the relation will strengthen and Russia will get an opportunity to diversify. Why Russia has come closer to China? Because post annexation of Crimea, all these nations, they have put sanctions on Russia. Russia is an energy dependent economy. It needed new markets. What are those new markets? China emerged as a new market. So that has brought both these nations together, but the fact is none of them trust each other. So हाँ है बहुत ज्यादा है. इंडिया और रशिया का है. पता है क्या बोला है एक्सपर्ट्स ने? दिमित्री ट्रिनिन, वहां के एक बहुत ही फेमस स्कॉलर है, रशियन स्कॉलर, वो बोलते हैं कि इंडिया रशिया रिलेशनशिप का चैलेंज ही यही है कि इनके बीच में कोई टेंशन नहीं है. क्योंकि जब रिलेशनशिप बिल्कुल स्मूथ रहता है ना, यू डू नॉट गो फॉर दैट एक्स्ट्रा पुश कि हमें और क्लोज होना है, हमें और क्लोज होना है. हमने इधर की तरफ यूएस की तरफ डाइवर्सिफाई करना स्टार्ट किया. रशिया ने कुछ इंडिकेशंस दिए कि हम पाकिस्तान के साथ एंगेजमेंट बढ़ा रहे हैं, लेकिन उन्होंने फिर क्लियर कर दिया कि नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होगा, दैट वाज ओनली टेररिज्म रिलेटेड. ये रशिया को भी पता है कि जो पाकिस्तान है वो 1/10 भी नहीं है इंडियन मार्केट के। सो रशिया विल नेवर ट्राई टू लूज दैट। एक अगला और सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर जो हमारे लिए रशिया को बहुत ही ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट बनाता है, ड्यूरिंग ओबामा टाइम यू विल रीड अबाउट समथिंग कॉल्ड एज G2, ग्रेट 2, that US and China should come together, US and China should collaborate with each other. So suppose there is a collaboration between US and China, what will happen? In the western sphere US, and in the eastern sphere it will be China. In the eastern sphere in Asia, if it is China, where will India go? It is but natural that we will have to follow China, a junior partner, which India is not willing to be. US has shown this indication multiple number of times. Recently, if you read at recent statements of Chinese foreign minister speech, he was also talking about better understanding, closer relations. We should ensure that this relationship depends between China and USA. So if there is though there is a very limited chance, but if US and China converge, because you cannot trust USA. What happened in 1972? China, a socialist, a communist economy, USA, a democratic nation. Just in order to weaken USSR and to exploit new opportunities, US went closer to China. So US is the best practitioner of real politics. Okay? So, and yes, Chanakya, 2300 to 2400 years back, he had said that your neighbor is a natural enemy and neighbor's neighbor is a natural friend. What is China? A neighbor. And what is Russia? Neighbor's neighbor. So that is why Afghanistan becomes important for us. That is why Central Asia becomes important for us. That is why Russia becomes important for us, even from a geopolitical perspective. So Russia is going to be important for us. We will read about all this while dealing with India and Russia, but since it is the topic now, militarily, the type of weapons, the type of technologies that Russia provides us, US will not be willing to provide. So going forward, balancing has to be the India's way forward, and believe me, we are very fortunate that Dr. S. Jaishankar is there as our foreign minister at this critical juncture, because when Dr. Jaishankar speaks, the whole world listens. He is in a better position to explain India's position, and when we look at the statements from USA, particularly the US administration, it has shown that they have a greater understanding. There is not that much pressurizing. Okay? अब समझ में आ गया क्यों इंडिया कभी चूज नहीं करेगा, मतलब किस यूएसए को. गॉट इट? नहीं, कोई भी डाउट है तो पूछ लो. समझ रहे हो ना सारे के सारे फैक्टर्स? डिफेंस डिपेंडेंस, नेचुरल जियोपॉलिटिक्स, क्योंकि अगर यूएस और चाइना क्लोज आ गए तो हमारा क्या होगा? अमेरिका किसी भी साइड पलट सकता है. अभी रशिया नहीं कर सकता. रशिया ऐसा नहीं करेगा. एक हिस्ट्री हो, देखो असल में क्या है ना, जियोपॉलिटिक्स के केस में, इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस के केस में ना, आपको उस नेशन का नेचर समझना पड़ता है. और सपोज करो कि रशिया पलट भी गया, उससे हमें दिक्कत क्या है? रशिया तो हमेशा चाह रहा था 2003-4 तक भी कि हम यूएस और यूरोप के क्लोजर चले जाएं, एंड दैट इज द बेस्ट बेट फॉर अस, दैट रशिया यूएस के क्लोजर चला जाए. कोई टेंशन ही नहीं है, तुम दोनों क्लोज हो जाओ ना भैया, हमारे लिए बहुत अच्छा है. दोस्त का दोस्त वैसे भी अगर दोस्त बन जाए तो क्या दिक्कत है? मैं आपसे दोस्त, वो उससे दोस्त, लेकिन अगर आप दोनों भी दोस्त बन जाओ, दी बेस्ट, देन एटलीस्ट देयर कैन बी अ क्लियर टारगेटिंग अबाउट द प्रेजेंट चैलेंज दैट इज चाइना। एक एक, तो ये था इंडिया का पर्सपेक्टिव। ओके, तो इंडिया के बारे में और कोई सवाल ऑनलाइन वालों का भी अगर है तो यू कैन मेंशन इट। वैसे व्हाट आई हैव डन, मैं पहले ही बता देता हूं, आई एम नॉट वेल वर्स्ड विथ ऑल द यूजिंग सोशल मीडिया वगैरह वगैरह, बहुत ही लिमिटेड मेरा एंगेजमेंट रहा है। आई हैव क्रिएटेड अ ग्रुप, दो मेनली फॉर द फाउंडेशन स्टूडेंट्स, बट हाउएवर यू कैन, मतलब बाहर वाले स्टूडेंट्स भी ऑल्सो you can get included in that group. The name, it is a telegram group, IR Foundation. Okay, IRF, these are capital, and OUNDATION, this is in small letter. This is a telegram group, there are no members. I had created it so that in case there are some doubts. Okay, so in case you feel like, you can join this and you can put your questions over there. जिस तरह का जो भी क्वेश्चन है, I will try my level best to explain everything to you. Because बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स ने ऐसे ऐसे क्वेश्चन किया ना, क्योंकि आप क्या करते हो, एक आर्टिकल पढ़ लिया, एक वीडियो देख लिया, और उसके बाद आपको लगा कि ठीक है मैं IR को समझ रहा हूँ, ना वैसा होता है और ना आपको वैसे आंसर लिखने हैं। मैं पहले भी बता चुका हूं, आपके आंसर्स डाइवर्सिफाइड होनी चाहिए, अलग अलग डायमेंशन पे। इकोनॉमी है तो मिलिट्री है, तो पॉलिटिक्स है, तो उसके अलावा एनर्जी कोऑपरेशन हो सकता है, तो टेक्नोलॉजिकल कोऑपरेशन हो सकता है, टेररिज्म है, क्लाइमेट चेंज है। डाइवर्सिफाई कीजिएगा अपने आंसर को, सिर्फ एक नहीं। 4 फाउंडेशन एग्रीमेंट हो गया तो उसके बाद फिर ठीक है हम मालाबार में यूएस के साथ कोऑपरेट कर रहे हैं, तो हैंड इन हैंड नहीं, यूएस के साथ हमारा जो भी मिलिट्री एक्सचेंज होता है, मिलिट्री एक्सरसाइज है, ये सारे के सारे एक डायमेंशन कवर कर रहे हैं। तो जस्ट मिलिट्री डायमेंशन फलाना 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 फलाना। ओके, देन गो टू अनदर डायमेंशन। जस्ट ऐसे में कैसे कहा जाता है, योर इट हैज योर, यू हैव टू स्ट्रक्चर एंड ब्रिंग इन वेरियस डायमेंशन, वेरियस एस्पेक्ट्स दैट हैज टू हैपन इन ऑल योर आंसर्स। मेंस में जो भी आंसर लिखो, ऑप्शनल हो या जीएस हो, क्योंकि वो आपकी एक डाइवर्सिफाइड अंडरस्टैंडिंग को प्रोजेक्ट करता है।
जैसे दो कंट्री के रिलेशन समझाने तो उसके हर डायमेंशन को खोल के
यस, एक एक लाइन में हर डायमेंशन को, एक एक पॉइंट पे, क्योंकि ऐसे नहीं तो क्या होता है ना कि एक ही डायमेंशन अगर आप लिख रहे हो तो वो ब्रॉड आंसर नहीं हुआ।
और अगर सर एक ही डायमेंशन को स्पेसिफिकली पूछा है तब भी तीनों
ना, एक तो इतने नैरो वो सवाल पूछते नहीं हैं, और अगर आया भी ना तो उसमें आपको डाइवर्सिफाई, जैसे सपोज कीजिए क्वेश्चन क्या आया, मिलिट्री रिलेशंस सपोज कीजिए, या सिक्योरिटी रिलेशंस, यहां पे डाइवर्सिफाई कीजिए, मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी, इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी, साइबर सिक्योरिटी, फिर ये क्या होता है, HADR, ह्यूमैनिटेरियन असिस्टेंस ड्यूरिंग डिजास्टर रिलीफ। तो इस तरह से अगर एक डायमेंशन भी आए ना, यू विल ऑलवेज बी इन अ पोजिशन टू डाइवर्सिफाई, क्योंकि डाइवर्सिफाई करने से क्या होता है ना, एक पता चल जाता है कि हाँ इसके पास एक होलसम नॉलेज है। वो आपसे उम्मीद क्या करते हैं, व्हेन यू लुक एट द क्वेश्चंस इन यूपीएससी, हर डायमेंशन को टच करता हुआ क्वेश्चन क्यों रहता है, क्योंकि वो आपसे उम्मीद करते हैं कि आपके पास हर डायमेंशन की जानकारी होगी। ऐसे में क्यों कहा जाता है कि आप अलग अलग डायमेंशन, सोसाइटी हो गया, इकोनॉमी हो गया, पॉलिटिक्स हो गया, इंटरनेशनल हो गया, इवन एट इंडिविजुअल लेवल हो गया, आपको एक्सप्लेन करना है। क्यों? जस्ट शो दैट यू कैन एक्सप्लेन कि मेरे पास एक होलसम, यूपीएससी में डेप्थ नहीं चाहिए, विड्थ चाहिए, क्योंकि डेप्थ तो आपके पास वहां जाने के बाद आएगा। इनिशियली जब आप वहां पे चार्ज लेते हो, आपका क्या रहता है, आप ग्राउंड पर काम करते हो, कॉमन लोगों के साथ प्रोजेक्ट के इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में काम करते हो, उसके लिए डेप्थ की जरूरत नहीं होती, क्योंकि डेप्थ का काम अगर इंजीनियर का है तो इंजीनियर के पास उसके फील्ड का डेप्थ है। अकाउंट्स का काम है तो जो भी आपका फाइनेंस डिपार्टमेंट देख रहा है उसके पास उस डिपार्टमेंट का डेप्थ है। यू नीड टू हैव अ होलिस्टिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द इशू। फिर क्या होता है, वो आपको कहते हैं कि ठीक है नाउ यू गो फॉर स्पेशलाइजेशन इन अ स्पेसिफिक फील्ड, आप खुद से कर रहे हो नहीं तो वो आपको कहते हैं। और तब स्पेशलाइजेशन, क्योंकि पॉलिसी फॉर्मुलेशन का रोल कहाँ से स्टार्ट होता है, ज्वाइंट सेक्रेटरी लेवल से, उस समय तक आपके पास स्पेशलाइजेशन, सो जनरलिस्ट प्लस स्पेशलिस्ट, इसका एक बैलेंस होता है डिप्लोमेट के केस में। हाँ, अगर आप स्पेसिफिक फील्ड में चले जाते हो तब आपको भैया फील्ड स्पेसिफिक, मैं इन जनरल आईएएस की बात कर रहा हूँ, जैसे अगर आप डिप्लोमेट बन गए फिर तो ये नेचुरल है ना। हाँ, आपके पास चीजों की समझ, यहां भी समझ होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि डिप्लोमेसी कोई एक फील्ड तो है नहीं, उसमें ये कॉमर्स आएगा, क्लाइमेट चेंज आएगा, टेक्नोलॉजिकल कोऑपरेशन आएगा, न्यूक्लियर कोऑपरेशन आएगा। तो आगे जाकर, क्योंकि इन सब में जब भी नेगोशिएशन चलता है ना, डिप्लोमेट्स सिर्फ फेस रहते हैं, बाकी आपको थिंक टैंक, एक्सपर्ट्स, इनसे आपको इनपुट मिलता रहता है कि व्हाट आई हैव टू डू, व्हाट आई हैव टू से, बिकॉज इट्स नेचुरल। एक जयशंकर के पास ठीक है चीजों का इंफॉर्मेशन है, डेप्थ उनके पास नहीं आ सकता ना, ये नेचुरल सीधी सी बात है। उनके पास डिप्लोमेसी की जानकारी है, कॉमर्स की बेसिक जानकारियां होंगी, इतना थोड़े ना है कि ठीक है कौन सा ट्रेड हमने एफटीए किया तो उसका हमारी इकोनॉमी पर क्या इंपैक्ट पड़ेगा, नेचुरली ही विल नॉट हैव दैट इंफॉर्मेशन। सो ये इंफॉर्मेशन नीचे से आता है उनके पास, देन ही अंडरस्टैंड्स एंड देन अकॉर्डिंगली अ डिसीजन विल बी मेड। ऐसे चलती हैं, ठीक है। इधर वालों का कोई सवाल? सर, व्हाट इज द राइट अप्रोच ऑफ यूपीएससी मेंस क्वेश्चन ऑन रशिया यूक्रेन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रिगार्डिंग आईआर? To answer this question, either I will bring in some questions and then we will try to answer that, or if you have got some set of questions, you put in those questions and then we will together try to answer that question, because वो डिपेंड करता है ना कि सवाल क्या है, राइट? तो आप क्या करो, अगर आपके पास कोई सवाल है सुमित, अगर आपके पास कोई सवाल है आप वो सवाल अभी रख सकते हो, रख दो, या फिर मैं ऐसा करूंगा कि अगले क्लास में मैं खुद से कुछ क्वेश्चंस फ्रेम करके लाऊंगा, अगर आपके पास कुछ है तो टेलीग्राम के उस ग्रुप में आप डाल दीजिए, ओके, सो दैट हम डिस्कस कर लेंगे, आप कुछ प्रैक्टिकली चीजें समझ जाएंगे ना, थ्योरी में क्या एक्सप्लेन करने, जब प्रैक्टिकली समझ ही सकते हैं। हाँ, बात पूछिए।
जैसे सर अभी रशिया यूक्रेन का इन्होंने क्वेश्चन पूछा,
हाँ,
तो इसमें सिर्फ रशिया यूक्रेन का बताना है, इसमें इंडिया का कंटेस्ट भी लेना?
जनरली सवाल होगा ही इंडिया का, और अगर नहीं भी आता है ना तो वेरी ब्रीफली मेंशन अबाउट, वो जनरली, क्योंकि आप का ये सब, इवन जब वो पीएसआईआर में आईआर का क्वेश्चन देखोगे ना, इंडिया का डायमेंशन हमेशा घुसा रहता है।
मतलब सर वो क्वेश्चन तो हमेशा इंडिया के डायमेंशन, मतलब इंडिया के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से पूछेंगे,
हाँ,
कभी मतलब ऐसे नहीं पूछेंगे कि सिर्फ रशिया यूक्रेन का बताओ,
वो रहेगा,
बट इंडिया के
देखिए सवाल ऐसा रह सकता है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल आई एम एक्सप्लेनिंग क्वेश्चन कि रशिया यूक्रेन क्राइसिस कैन ऑल्टर द अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ सिक्योरिटी, कुछ इस तरह का सवाल, व्हाट शुड बी इंडियाज स्टांस, या व्हाट शुड बी इंडियाज अप्रोच, कुछ इस तरह से करके सवाल हो सकता है। तो पहले पार्ट में क्या हुआ, सिक्योरिटी का क्या अंडरस्टैंडिंग है और रशिया यूक्रेन ने कैसे चीजों को चैलेंज किया है। तो अगेन यहाँ पे यू हैव टू डाइवर्सिफाई, कन्वेंशनल सिक्योरिटी, न्यूक्लियर डेटरेंस, क्योंकि ये भी दिख रहा है ना, इट इज कंटिन्यूअसली बीइंग सेड कि यूक्रेन के पास जितने भी न्यूक्स थे उसने दे दिया था रशिया को, बदले में कि मुझे सिक्योरिटी मिलेगी। नतीजा क्या हुआ, रशिया हैज अटैक्ड यूक्रेन। ईरान पे क्यों नहीं अटैक हो पा रहा है, नॉर्थ कोरिया इतना छोटा सा देश क्यों अटैक नहीं हो पा रहा है, क्योंकि उनके पास न्यूक्लियर कैपेबिलिटी है। सो इसलिए, और अगर आप देखें एक्स प्राइम मिनिस्टर शिंजो आबे, जो आज भी जापान में काफी इन्फ्लुएंशियल है, उन्होंने क्या कहा है कि जापान शुड होस्ट यूएस न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स। अगला जब आप गल्फ की तरफ जाएंगे, और अभी आपने न्यूज पढ़ा होगा कि बाइडन मेड अ कॉल, तो यूएई और सऊदी दोनों ने नहीं रिसीव किया। उसके रूट में कई सारे फैक्टर्स हैं, वो भी मतलब उसमें 1 2 3 4 5 मल्टीपल फैक्टर्स हैं। एंड किंग प्रिंस सलमान ही हैज सेड कि अगर वो जाता, ईरान जाता है न्यूक्लियर, देन वी आर आल्सो गोइंग न्यूक्लियर। तो ये अगला डायमेंशन है सिक्योरिटी का कि इसके कारण न्यूक्लियर प्रोलिफरेशन हो सकता है कि बढ़ सकता है, क्योंकि न्यूक्लियर सिक्योरिटी इज सीन एज अल्टीमेट डिटरेंस। अगर रहेगा तो यू विल नॉट, क्योंकि ठीक है सामने से अगर आ गया तो लुक एट पाकिस्तान 1971 में जो 71 में जो पाकिस्तान की स्थिति थी ना, आज उससे कहीं बुरी है, बट स्टिल इट इज एबल टू होल्ड टुगेदर। क्यों? न्यूक्लियर। नहीं तो इंडिया के लिए बहुत ज्यादा दिक्कत नहीं होती, इंडिया या किसी देश के लिए यार, टू इंजीनियर समथिंग। बट हाँ, पाकिस्तान मिलिट्री ऑल्सो बिकॉज इट इज वेरी स्ट्रांग। हम लाख उनको गाली दें, बट इट इज अ फैक्ट दैट दे आर एक्चुअली स्ट्रांग। लड़ाई करने में नहीं है, हाउ टू कंट्रोल देयर सोसाइटी, पाकिस्तान वो उसमें बहुत स्ट्रांग है। दे आर वेरी स्ट्रांग। उन्होंने सबके माइंड को इस तरह से क्या उसे कहते हैं, डॉक्टर कर दिया है ना, हाँ ब्रेन वॉश कर दिया है ना, कि सिर्फ मिलिट्री हमारे इंटरेस्ट को प्रोटेक्ट कर सकती है। एंड टू ऑल दीज पार्टीज, जिसे मिलिट्री सपोर्ट नहीं करेगी, दैट पार्टी कैन नॉट कम टू पावर। क्या सवाल था? ओके 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 डेल्टा फोर्स, he is saying that I should explain. I apologize. Actually, generally I explain in English only. Yes. So where I was, what all did I say in Hindi? Yeah. What I was saying that even in nuclear, okay, in case of nuclear, that how this will upend the security scenario across the globe and how India should handle, something like that was the question, right? So apart from conventional security, that this will challenge a big state small state relationship who share a common neighborhood, because this has shown that a big state can violate the sovereignty of any small state, but this will also bring in context regarding this nuclear weapon, nuclear capability, because it provides ultimate deterrence. Today, US, despite putting multiple sanctions, it has not been able to change regime in Iran. It has not been able to invade Iran. Similarly, in North Korea. Reason? They are nuclear powers. So naturally, it provides you a greater degree of deterrence. So these are all the security scenarios. It may so happen that the way Ukraine is going, there is a clear-cut fear that it may so happen that something like Iraq or Libya might happen in Ukraine. Because what is happening? This again I would have come while discussing the decision about Ukraine, but since this is regarding to security, what has Ukraine done? It has provided weapons to civilians. It has even provided automatic weapons even to the jail inmates. It has provided, right? So suppose, what can, just think of this, because there is a possibility if those weapon wielding people cross to other these smaller nations in Europe, Eastern Europe, they might create a law and order situation, or it may so happen that there might be small groupings within Ukraine having their own sphere of influence and ruling, just like the terror groups that are in Syria, Libya, etc. So all these are security challenges. Okay.
क्वेश्चन कि अभी ना अभी आपने कश्मीर फाइल्स का नाम लिया इसी से, तो उसमें एक सीन आता है एंड में, क्या जो ये आपके टेररिस्ट होते हैं वो आर्मी की यूनिफॉर्म पहन के सिविलियंस को मारते हैं, तो सर सेम यूक्रेन में नहीं हो सकता कि ये भी रशियन यूनिफॉर्म पहन के, क्योंकि इनका जो क्या कहते हैं फिजिकल अपीयरेंस रशियन जैसे सेम है, तो ये भी अपने सिविलियंस पर क्राइम को बढ़ा रहे हैं उससे ज्यादा।
Exactly. This might happen. So about Ukraine and all these decisions, okay, since we are discussing this, after India we are going to Ukraine, okay, and let me say something. You people might disagree with me to a great extent regarding Ukraine, because my decisions are not based on emotions. They are my understanding is completely based on reason. You see what happened after Viktor Yanukovych, then came Poroshenko, and presently it is Zelensky, right? And the situation is such that 50% of Ukrainian parliamentarians are double passport holders, and that passports belongs to the West. So if you have got an opposition leader who is pro-Russia, you put him in jail, and when 50% of your parliamentarians are double passport holders of the West, you do not have issue with that, right? Is this not duplicity? That okay, we will not be controlled by any other power. Oh, West, that is all right. That is what Ukraine is saying. So what happened, and let us look at Viktor Yanukovych. Till 2018, he was a actor, a comedian, whatever you may say. Oh, sorry, yeah, Zelensky only. He was a actor, then he made a party, and then he became president. I have absolutely no problem with any person coming to politics, because if we look at Ronald Reagan, he was an actor and his policies were very critical in end of USSR. His Star Wars and then going for neoliberal economic policies, all these were principled. But what happened was that the West was, mainly US was propping up Ukraine. That okay, we will support you, we will support you, we will support you. He took a strident anti-Russia position, demanded a partnership of membership of NATO. Russia was constantly saying, and yes, Russia does not want to control Ukraine, because he knows you cannot. If US could not control Afghanistan, Libya, etc., he knows that unnecessarily this will be draining of his own wealth, resources, manpower, everything. What it wants is first, either a pro-Russia regime, do not write puppets, because again this puppet term is from West, that if one is not puppet of Russia, then what is Zelensky? Puppet of West. Why he is not being written as puppet of West? Better language will be pro-Russia and pro-West. Either Russia wants a pro-Russia regime in Ukraine, or it has demanded neutrality, that you will go with no other bloc. That will ensure the security of Russian territory. As I explained, the revenge of geography, Russia ensures its own security through maintaining buffers. So a neutral Ukraine will act as a buffer. But what Zelensky did? I want membership of NATO. US will come to defend me. And he kept on taking strident position. Whole world knew that US will not come to Ukraine's defense. Whole world knew. Because if US comes to the defense of Ukraine, it will be a world war. Because two of the most powerful nations, first USA and second is Russia, they will be fighting, everyone knew. And that is why political maturity is very much important in case of administration. Then what happened? Everyone had thought that hardly 4 to 5 to 6 days, this will be over. It is not over, and everyone is clapping about Zelensky, everyone is clapping about Zelensky. Even the West, they are continuously pushing that okay, we will support you with weapons, fighters, etc., etc. They are doing for their own benefit. Exactly look who are most active. You will find two nations. One will be UK, another will be USA. Only two nations you will find most active. Reason? Go back to internal politics. I had said history, politics, economy, right? Go back to internal politics. Biden, his approval ratings are low, way below 40%. And in 2022, there are midterm elections in USA. And it has been a survey that during wartime, the approval ratings of US presidents get increased. For example, you can look at Iraq war. Bush, there was no chance for Bush coming back to power. Iraq war, whole nation started supporting. 2004 elections, he was back to power. And in UK, you know about the party during the COVID times. There have been reports by the parliamentary groups, and they are directly implicating Boris Johnson. So Boris Johnson is looking at, okay, by taking a strident position, what will happen? That my approval ratings will increase. It might so happen that people forget all those parties during the COVID and my acceptability will increase. And here comes the reason why they have blocked the Russian narrative. Where is the freedom of expression? No Russia Today, blocked. Even on Facebook, blocked. Even on YouTube, many such actions have been taken. So when a distraught Ukrainian narrative comes, there will be pressure in all these nations because they are democracies. People will feel, people will protest, they will ask their actions to leaders to take action. The leaders will take action. Naturally, people will feel satisfied. Then in Western Europe, it was expected. You must have seen that initially they were hesitant. French President Macron, he made a visit to Russia to understand the things because he was part of that Minsk II agreement. So when such messages come, naturally there will be demand from population within these nations. Their leaders will be forced to take strict steps. As a result, anti-Russia stance will be emboldened up. What will be the result? There will be a difference between Western Europe and Russia, and Western Europe will go closer to USA. Look at this politics. In politics, nothing happens without any reason, and there are no coincidences. Everything happens for a purpose. Very, very sophisticated. Normally, we cannot understand that because there is lack of information, there is doctored information, there is misinformation, there is disinformation. Okay, Delta Force. Let me first look at your first question. The question is, after seeing Russian unilateral interference in Ukraine, can we say that Russia still wants to control the erstwhile members of USSR and regain its lost global hegemony? Any nation would want that. If Russia was a superpower, naturally it would want that. And yes, it wants to control it, but at the same time, just look at it. It has not gone for, let me clear all this. It has not gone for intervention in all these nations. Had Russia wanted to control the erstwhile USSR nations, why has Russia not gone for intervention? All these are NATO members, right? Except for Serbia. It is not related to controlling the erstwhile nations, but about the security of Russia. I have explained Russia ensures its own security by creating buffers around its borders. So Russia wants that this buffer should remain there, rather than suppose Ukraine goes to NATO, there will be missile defense system, there will be missiles of NATO nations, of USA, that will be pointing towards Russia. And yes, about this, why Russia has a problem? Let me go back to the Cold War 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. Why USA was so much concerned when USSR was putting its missile in Cuba? Even today, what will be USA reaction if this Mexico goes closer to Russia, or again some missiles are put in Cuba? Will USA react favorably? No, it will go for invading, and all its channel will start crying, my security, my security, my security. And today, when Russia is crying, my security, please understand, Russia was even willing to be part of NATO. US ensured that this does not happen. So rather than global hegemony, everyone wants, even a smaller nation. But it is not about controlling, it is about Russia's own security, the way Russia looks at its own security. And the point is, why NATO is expanding? Why is NATO expanding? From whom do you have a threat? You say Russia. Russia is saying, okay, then make me a part of NATO. Russia part of NATO. So no Russia, no threat. So these are some specific. Next question you have got.
NATO country नहीं, NATO country पे attack कर दिया फिर एक worst case scenario.
This will not happen, because generally, though there are NATO forces, but they are not within the control of these nations. There is some distinct, it is actually, yes, yeah, security community. We'll read about this in political science. Now, security community, defense community. Okay. Next question. Out of all Russian neighbor countries, why does only Ukraine want to act against interest of Russia? Go back to the initial class. In Georgia, what happened? Why was in 2008 Georgia was bombed, and Ossetia and Abkhazia? Apart from that, look at Poland, look at Hungary, look at Romania. They are all acting against it. It is not just Ukraine. And moreover, in Ukraine, what is the issue is that initially also, when I explained that Ukraine is roughly divided, here all these nations, these population have greater impact, and in this region it is the Russian population that is greater. So within Europe also, within Ukraine also, there is a divide between population. And with the change in regime, this is pro-West regime, and it's natural that it is the West, it is the USA which is continuously pushing. So that is what it is. Russia does not want Ukraine. Russia has simply said, you declare your neutrality, and that would have been best way forward for Ukraine. If you are a big nation, if you are a small nation, suppose for example Bhutan, for example Nepal, suppose China put some military equipments in Nepal, how will India react? It's natural we will not react favorably, because we want you to be a buffer rather than an ally of my enemy. So it is not only Ukraine. Go back, all these nations which were separated, they are part of NATO. Today you all know how Poland, how Hungary at the Poland borders, missile defense systems have been put by USA. So it's not only Ukraine. Okay. So so now go back to Ukraine and its president. Zelensky wanted membership of NATO, and whole world knew that this is not going to happen. Russia put forces on the borders. Okay. Then what it did? Still Ukraine was not understanding, because US will come to my support. It recognized new nations, Donetsk and Luhansk. And believe me, no one had thought that Russia is going to invade. Perhaps just like in Georgia, something like this would have taken place. But again, you will have to look at the geopolitics. Presently, US is continuously getting weakened. particularly under the Biden administration. Russia had to send a message to the other nations that such a design, such a misadventure can be very detrimental to you. So it took in Russia's opinion a calculated step. I do not know whether that has been successful or not. I do not know, because there are many reports, but these are mainly pro-West reports, that Russia had expected that this will end in these many days, it is stretching, etc., etc. I do not know. We do not know it for a fact. So Russia came in and it has pulverized, and it will go for pulverizing each and every military infrastructure of Ukraine. And that is what it is doing. It is setting a lesson. First, rebuilding Ukraine will take a lot of time. So naturally, that will ensure that Russia is, its safety is ensured, and that will send a message to all the nations that do not try to act contrary to Russia's interest when you have such a big, such a strong neighbor. Moreover, today Russia is less dependent on Western Europe for its oil, because it has got a partner in the form of China. If you remember the date, a 30-year deal when Putin visited China. 20% of exports of Russia's overall energy resources are to China. And see the funny part, Russia has taken action in Ukraine. Energy prices are rising. Ultimately, it is Russia that is benefiting. Early you had energy around where? Hardly 60-70 billion dollars. It has more than doubled. So it's natural that even if Russia's export half, then still it will be in profit. And yes, back to India, one more point, I had missed that. Regarding Russia, India has got significant investment in energy investment in Russia, particularly by ONGC in Sakhalin block. In recent times, when India put it in the market, there were no buyers. So this creates a challenge for our investments over there. Many of the banks, they have put restrictions that no, we will not involve in business with Russia. The problem being, they might be impacted by the Western sanctions. So what the government of India is doing, it is going back to the old method, the way it had continued trade with Iran during sanctions. It is going for a rupee ruble trade, and Russia is providing a 25 to 27% discount to us if we buy energy, the crude from there. But the problem is, if insurance costs are high, then naturally whatever the benefit that we will be getting, that 25 to 27% discount, naturally due to high interest, how high this insurance cost, the benefit will be offset. So roughly the thing will remain same. So it depends how Russia tries to provide us all these facilities, because naturally we will be interested in a cheaper crude. Moreover, this will give us opportunity to diversify our energy resources and have closer economic cooperation with Russia. Plus, we have sent a very clear message to Russia that we are not in US bloc. Our partnership remains there. On Indo-Pacific, there were differences. But President Putin's visit to India, though it was just for 4 hours, but this was very significant, because that was the first visit of Russian president post-pandemic. Even at G20 and other meetings, he had not gone. It was just a 4-hour meeting, but that was a very significant, and that was the proof that India-Russia relationship is continuously going strong. Okay. No more new questions. So back to Ukraine. Russia has pulverized Ukraine. What has Zelensky done? Given weapons, as explained, that can create internal security challenges, right? So, and another very important aspect, this is the part of political theory and common understanding of the governance as well. What is the first responsibility of any state? To ensure the lives, to protect the life of its citizens. So when Ukraine was not in a position to protect the lives of its citizens, naturally it had lost its legitimacy to a great extent. Police, the army, since they had a duty to fight, they had to fight in Ukraine. But what Ukraine did, 18 to 60 years of age of people, they cannot go out of Ukraine. Who gave this right to Ukraine? There were people who were doctors, who were engineers, who were some electrician. They do not know how to use a weapon. They had not subscribed for that. So they had a right to protect their own lives. Today you may say, oh, he has given this leadership, that leadership, every other time he is coming on the social media speaking this, speaking that. If I am an engineer or a doctor and I have a right to protect my own life, who gave Ukraine the right to ensure that no, they will not move away, they will fight? You are putting the lives of your own citizen in danger. Then the question comes, what should have been done, right? You see, many can answer that no, everyone should fight, everyone can take up a weapon. This is not the world of 1600s and 1700s, 7th, 10th, 13th century. This used to happen, not presently. Moreover, another aspect, you are resisting, right? Zelensky is resisting. As a result, what is happening? Apart from loss of lives, whole infrastructure is getting decimated. What will be the cost of reconstruction? What will be the cost? From where will the money come? Is it even a $1 trillion economy? So, citizen of that country, citizen of Western Europe and citizens of USA. Even on us, the medical supplies that we sent them, that was from the taxpayers' money. That was a humanitarian gesture, I do not deny. And that should happen. That was a good step from the government of India. But I am just explaining about all this when we all start talking, oh, Zelensky is great, he has shown leadership, he has shown leadership. There is a difference between, what is that? Bravery and foolishness. There is a very thin line. The problem is that one moment one is brave, another moment the same person is foolish. In US, the rich do not pay major taxes. So ultimately, it will be the poor who will be paying, right? Another benefit, looking at all these destructions, all these nations will demand more weapons. That weapon will come from USA, ultimately benefiting the US defense companies. So loss to the common citizens and benefit to the businesses, right? So due to this, and everyone knows that you cannot win. Everyone knows that. It might take 50 days, it might take 30 days or 10 days, no one knows. Then, and when I look at this, the decision of Ashraf Ghani to run away, that I understand that it was a better decision. At least Kabul is safe, infrastructure is there. So you say Zelensky, why could he have run, matlab ki he should not have run away, loss of face, वगैरह वगैरह, etc etc.
सरेंडर कर देता है रशियन फोर्सेस को तो उसको मार देंगे या फिर
नहीं नहीं, they will never kill him. ऐसा हो, it might so happen that someday Russian spy might yeah, what is that called, poison him, something like that. It may so happen, but again you cannot be very much sure. So just for saving a face, it may so have happened that Zelensky could have given a detailed speech that if I remain, there will be loss of life. And these people who are running away, leaving everything back to all these nations, this huge refugee crisis, this would not have happened. You would have given a detailed speech that this is the reason I am moving away, but the government will continue. So the way there was a Euromaidan protest in 2014, perhaps again a same protest could have been created. And suppose if public is not willing to be governed by a specific government, that government can never govern the same set of people. So again you would have come back to power. What Russia would have done? Division across this river. Yeah, this is a separate nation, that is a separate nation. But but the point is that he is someone from the cinema. He might be believing in all those scripts that this will happen, that will happen, that will happen, that will happen. And who is paying for all this? The common civilians of Ukraine. Nothing like this would have happened. And at the best, what was the problem in accepting neutrality? Be neutral. No one is asking you to be ruled by Russia. Russia is not asking.
की तरफ भी जो इनका एयर बेस था वो भी आज उड़ा दिया।
हाँ, they will do it. It is well known. They are not after the lives of Ukrainians. But yes, the war has collateral damages. And you see, it is not that I am favoring, I am not favoring, I am just explaining things. It might so happen that you will start disagreeing with whatever I say. But I am not emotional. I am talking practical governance, practical decision making. If you got any question, please put over here. Okay.
मतलब ओवरऑल इंडिया का स्टैंड बिल्कुल सही है रशिया के।
Yeah, it is natural.
ये तो चीज जो है ये नॉर्मली डिप्लोमेसी से सॉल्व हो सकती है अगर यूक्रेन अपना ईगो हटा।
Exactly. You have to understand things. One has to understand things.
हम यूक्रेन का ईगो का या रशिया का? आई थिंक सो यूक्रेन का
ईगो
यूक्रेन न्यूट्रल रह सकता है।
Yes.
न्यूट्रल रह के वो बिल्कुल डेवलप कर सकता है।
Definitely, because you see, Russia is an ex-superpower. So you cannot ask a more powerful nation to bow down in front of a less powerful nation. That is simple understanding. I am not talking about what is just. Nothing, because all these idealism, that does not work in politics, it does not work in diplomacy. You have to be pragmatic, you have to be rational, you have to be a realist.
बट सर यूक्रेन वॉर के बाद रशिया भी तो काफी ज्यादा
Yeah.
खराब हो गया क्योंकि सर पूरा सैंक्शन लगा के एक तो वर्ल्ड की नंबर 1 सैंक्शन कंट्री हो गई है, शिफ्ट बैन भी लगा दिया, रूबल बिल्कुल गिर गया, मतलब बहुत बुरी पिटाई हो गई है रूबल की, और डॉलर मतलब हर जगह से बैन हो गया। तो रशिया इसके बाद कोई बड़ा स्टेप लेगा या नहीं लेगा इस सैंक्शंस को लेकर?
Russia will, you see, the point is Russian main export is energy. Exports to US have been banned, but its main market is still there. They have sanctioned, but again, has there been sanction on Rosneft, Gazprom? No, because they also know that if we put the sanctions, where are we going to get energy from? Even if you import all the energy from USA, you will need all those tankers for storage. That creation takes time.
यूएसए ने मेरे ख्याल से रशिया पे जैसे कि ऑयल बैन और ये सब लगा दिया, बट इन्होंने अभी तक वेनेजुला से और ईरान से हटाया नहीं, तो इससे तो पर बैरल जैसे कि रशियन बोल रहे हैं 300 बैरल्स, बट वो हो सकता है इन फ्यूचर और भी चले जाए ये, क्योंकि अब मेनली यही कंट्री रह गई हैं अरब कंट्रीज.
Again, they are talking with Venezuela. The same they had sanctioned. Now when there is a need, they are talking and there are talks of lifting the sanctions, and Venezuela is agreeing that okay, we will increase our production. So again you see, it is about the interest, because if yesterday it was a violator of human rights, Venezuela, is it not a violator today? Then what happened? Why are you removing the sanctions? Exactly, because within USA, roughly around $4 plus gallon oil has increased, historical highest
in US.
in USA. Yes, it has breached $4 per gallon. There is election. Then what happened? They made a call to West. They did not receive the call. Arab countries, yeah, West is West Asia. Why they did not?
Because they don't want to मतलब सर OPEC प्लस के रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस की तोड़ना चाहते हैं, जो इन्होंने रशिया के साथ करा है. रशिया को इन्होंने बैन कर दिया है, और रशिया इज आई थिंक सर OPEC प्लस कंट्री.
You see, there are no sentiments, friendship, etc. in international relations.
Sir, I am talking about treaty with OPEC plus and Russia.
It frequently it is sidelined. In 2020 it did. In 2020, just to weaken Russia, they had pumped up their production. Go back to the reason. When Biden came, what did it say? Review the relationship. Okay. Second factor, whatever spelling is, Khashoggi murder, which was almost directly implicating Mohammed bin Salman. Third, that is Yemen. Yemen war. What US did? It withdrew its support. Fourth one, defense export. More than $20 billion worth of defense equipments that was supposed to be exported to UAE. It said that okay, I will review. What UAE did? Take your own weapons. They are buying Rafales from France. So when all these factors are there, and slowly China and Russia there, and what this, another factor, Qatar. Qatar has been recognized as a major non-NATO state, and Qatar had tensions with Saudi and UAE.
NATO state?
Non-NATO.
No.
Because NATO is only for European nations. So they had tensions with Qatar, but what they did? Qatar is non-NATO state. And next, 6, Iran nuke deal. All these factors are there. So when a call of US president is not received by among its most trusted partners, this shows the distrust towards USA and the weakening of USA. Then what USA does? It tells China, support us. It gives some set of information, intelligence, and China shares that with Russia. So this is a proof that USA is weakening, and when you start weakening, yes. Next, let us go to USA only. What are the factors for USA? The first will be energy trade. When West is not buying, West, I mean Western Europe is not buying from Russia, it is natural it will buy from USA, and US has emerged as a major energy producer and exporter. Second is internal politics. As I explained, what it is? Biden's declining popularity, and there are midterm elections, right? Third is about increased tension between EU and Russia, because US never wanted Nord Stream 2, but presently it is in a position that the Western nations, particularly Germany, it is forced that it will not certify Nord Stream 2. But again, this creates a challenge, because if Russian exports are not in the market, how will you control the energy prices? Domestically also it is very high, internationally also it is very high. When prices start rising, it is but natural that nations are not going to listen to your sanctions. They will start buying energy from wherever they want, right? This is USA. Now about EU, Europe. For Europe, it is a matter of serious concern. Its energy dependence on Russia, then its own security in the region, all that is threatened. Then the main beneficiary in all this is China. USA yaar, na yaar, it is declining. It has to ask West Asia for pumping more oil. West Asia is not pumping because they are benefiting from higher prices. They are talking to Venezuela that okay, we are ready to lift sanctions. Domestically also the high prices, that is not being liked by its people. China becomes let's discuss China. What would China be looking at in this war? Come on, I do not think that much. The first would be sanctions on Russia and how to proof its own economy. They have put a SWIFT ban. China has got its own UniPay in more than 100 nations. Then they will, what type of sanctions they are putting on Russia about its key exports. So it will be trying to ensure that no, in my key markets, these sanctions should not be much effective, because on Taiwan China wants to capture Taiwan, right? So if it goes for, it must be looking at what are the tools that are available with the West. Exactly. Moreover, challenge for USA is that on your east it is Russia and on west it is China. This you can say this is Asia. Okay, this is Eastern Europe and this is Pacific. US is in not a position to take on both of them together. So when this tension with Russia started, it was but natural that there would be a doubts in the minds of its own allies that perhaps US will be more engaged over here and China will no more be the priority. That is why this Indo-Pacific, the meet is what was that Quad meeting. First, to bring India into confidence and to provide a confidence to its other allies that no, we are going to have continued focus on China only. And you see, no matter how much you criticize Donald Trump was way better than all these presidents. Because simply in order to weaken China, you need to do one thing. You will have to bring Russia out of its own, out of China's influence. So that is why Donald Trump was cutting some slack on Russia and he was targeting China. But the internal politics of USA is such that they are still with that Cold War mentality. That no, Russia is the challenge because it is such a big nation. And another issue is that US businesses have got their investments in China. And you know that in China, in USA, there is lobbying. So suppose US puts some sanctions on China, ultimately it is the profit of all those businesses that will be getting hampered. So naturally, those businesses will ensure to create an environment that US does not take strong actions against China. So that is why China is benefiting, because US is not in a position to take very strong actions against China. There are steps, whether they are lip services, where there will be some strong actions, it is doubtful, because unless you decouple China and Russia, you cannot take them on. No one can take them on. Donald Trump, he engaged with this North Korea. And on the other hand, who is clapped in USA? Barack Obama. When did he get his Nobel Prize? Within few days of becoming US president. In his citation, what is it written? World peace, nuclear non-proliferation, etc., etc. And the same messenger of peace, what he did? Invaded Libya 2011. In his first term, there were more than 1 lakh of soldiers in Afghanistan. And for the second term, what was his promise? I will reduce the soldiers from Afghanistan. So first you increase it and then you promise to the people that I will decrease it. But the problem is that we do not go for objective analysis of these people. Oh, he speaks so well. Oh, he dresses so well. So yes, I like my president. Donald Trump, for all these, yes, coming out of JCPOA was a very big blunder, no doubt. But at least about China, he had a very clear vision. So this is what happens. So, but for China, the challenge is that this rising energy prices, the resultant uncertainty, that is a very big challenge for China. Okay. So for those online students, what more I should be discussing, please ask the questions if you want to, because I don't think there is much left. What more do you think I should be discussing?
India का focus.
India's profit. India's profit, presently we are not in a position. Exactly.
क्योंकि हम भी जैसे कि
Yeah. हाँ, यूनिपे.
यूनिपे के जैसे हम भी अपना यूपीआई दे सकते हैं रशिया को,
But
इसका बहुत ज्यादा नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट जाएगा.
and that is a long term process. What can happen that after the war is over, because there is an agreement that what is Russian payment system and this Indian payment system, collaboration and interchangeability among those. Once the war ends, then definitely there will be significant movements on this front between India and Russia. But during the war we cannot. Moreover, this does not happen overnight. Rupee is accepted till now in Nepal. UPI, I think in UAE it has been accepted. Yeah, UPI or rupee. I UPI, yes, rupee India का ही है. So you do not benefit because these are some critical moments. You just lie low in such moments. The problem is that we are member of UNSC, so we cannot keep ourselves out of all this. But yes, once the war is over, then, because even if we look at the stance of China, it was expected that at UNSC it will vote in Russia's favor. It has not. It has abstained. So that is being seen as a negative between Russia-China relationship. Another, it is also talking about no sanctions, because it knows that if China does something related to Taiwan, it might face the same sanction.
बट सर चाइना ने अभी रशिया को एयरप्लेन्स के पार्ट्स कंपोनेंट्स देने से मना कर दी.
Exactly. Yeah, this news. So there are multiple aspects. There is a scope that this will increase dependence of Russia on China. But all these factors, they prove. And yes, between Russia and China, the point is that we are seeing points of convergence. Though I was planning to, I will again teach it when we will be discussing either Russia-India relationship or India-China relationship. The point is, in Central Asia, Russia has got its military influence, China has got economic influence. But all these areas Russia considers as its own backyard. So it would never want that China's influence should increase. Because between Russia and China, you see, what is the unifying factor? Trade is the outcome.
So with the sanctions of the
Yeah, opposition to the West or opposition to the USA. So if tomorrow that opposition ends, it's but natural that this bonding will end, because this bonding is not internal, inherent, right? It is something external. But between India and Russia, there are no points of tension, right? But both India and Russia want a multipolar world. Neither China, neither USA wants a multipolar world. Yes. So with USA, with China, this is a clear case of, and this is not something external. This is about our own strategic understanding of the things. So that is the reason that India and Russia are going to remain close. Naturally, there will be blips in the relationship, because that is dependent on the circumstances. That will also, it will also be important to see that, because India is presently talking about creating a rupee ruble exchange system.
De-dollarization and rupee ruble.
Yeah, and that will be mostly based, and even in case of, just look at it, how Russia is playing smart. The Russia and China trade, this 30-year deal, it will not be done in yuan or renminbi that China does with other nations. It will be done in euro. Yes, it will be done in euro. That is an attempt towards reducing dependence on dollar and increasing significance of euro. So again, Russia is also trying that China's, though I am dependent on China, I should not be overtly dependent so that my own strategic interests are compromised. Another challenge between China and Russia relationship. Russia has got two key friends. Who are they? India and Vietnam. Two of the biggest headaches for China. Both Vietnam and India are important partners of Russia. Both are headaches for. What is India doing? India is selling BrahMos to Philippines. BrahMos created with India and Russia. So just look at all this. There are talks that there is strategic partnership, they have deepened their cooperation, but the structure is such. Moreover, regarding this investment in the Vladivostok region in Siberian, Russia does not want China's presence because there is always a fear that China might capture this region. That is why India is there for investment. Japan is there, South Korea is there. Japan, a US partner. So all this distrust, it is there in the relationship. However, the scenario, the circumstances are such that both are together. Because there is no bigger energy guzzler than China. With India, you want to reach up to India, but the problem is the geographical distance. We are trying to create that Chennai-Vladivostok corridor, but all this takes time. Moreover, under sanctions, and yes, Russia has got another set of challenge, that the law and order situation is not good. Even in case of, suppose Indian company has trade with Russian company, matter taken to the court, more chances that it will be go in the favor of Russian company. So that creates another challenge for investment of the private sector. So all these all factors are there. I don't think there are any questions. So please, I think the class will be ending. However, I would ask you that in case you people have got any doubts about not only today's class, previous classes or future classes, this Telegram group, IR Foundation, you will not find any member in this group because this is very new and I have created it, and you can put in your questions, okay, so that we can have a discussion. I can clear your doubts. It can be in writing, it can be by just speaking and recording your answers, because I want you people to understand the things. Your understanding should not be dependent on just reading one article or listening to one video. Have a broad understanding of what is happening and why is it happening and how this is going to impact. So this is what it was regarding the ongoing geopolitical crisis. Your questions are welcome about this topic, about previous topics and the coming topics. And in the coming topics, we will be reading Cold War, and then we will go to India, USA, and then Russia, China, and all that, and then to the regional institutions. Thank you all for today's class. That's the end of it.